I want to start off this video by asking, how long do rebuilds occasionally last? Now, by asking that question, I'm not saying that the Red Wings should be good and they should be in this rebuild right now, but we're starting to get into that area. In history, rebuilds have been as short as one season, and as long as... How long has it been since the Sabres made the playoffs? All jokes aside, this season so far has kind of been a relative improve from last year for the Detroit Red Wings, as so far this season they are 16, 15, and 7 for 39 points. They have scored 114 goals and have only let in 129. However, they are 7 points out of the playoffs. In the competitive Eastern Conference, I would honestly argue only one team is actually legitimately out of the playoff race or is non-competitive, and that's Columbus. The other teams like Montreal, Philadelphia, Ottawa, Detroit, Florida, Buffalo, and the Islanders have all proved that they can be extremely competitive. Teams like the Canadiens can prove that they can beat good teams, and the Flyers have actually been relatively good in the past couple of games, which is pretty surprising. So a lot of teams are more competitive than we may think. For Detroit to be 7 points out, odds aren't looking too good. Now, when you ask a Red Wings fan what the biggest problem is in Detroit right now, they may say that goal scoring is the biggest problem. The Red Wings have scored a staggering 114 goals and only have 4 players with 10 plus goals, and they are 4th worst in scoring in the entire Eastern Conference. The teams that are above them and even the teams that are below them have way more goals than Detroit does right now. So yeah, goal scoring is definitely a major problem for this team, and it doesn't help with some of the hurt players and some of the players who have struggled as well. Robby Fabbri has been hurt since the start of the season, same with Filip Zadina. Jakub Vrana was additionally in the player assistance program and was sent down to the AHL as well. Tyler Bertuzzi has also been hurt, so that's been a big blow to their goal scoring. And then some other players who really weren't that good last year and aren't good this year either. P.S. Sutter, 11 points in 37 games played, and Joe Veleno, 12 points in 37 games played. It's also a little concerning, too, that Veleno has really never panned out to be what Detroit wanted him to be. He dropped way down in the 2018 draft, and the Red Wings should not have picked him. So yeah, with a lot of injuries and really no secondary scoring, it kind of makes the forwards leading the charge a little bit dull. Despite that, though, there are some players that are worth talking about, starting off with Dylan Larkin, who may be on his way out. Captain Dylan Larkin is on the final year of his contract, and with the trade deadline swiftly approaching and the Red Wings hovering over the 500 record, he might get dealt. Larkin, however, has come out and said that he would like to stay on the Red Wings no matter what, and there is no place that he would rather play. But however, I'm wondering if Yzerman has a different plan. Larkin so far this season has 13 goals, 20 assists for 33 points, so there is a lot of questions whether or not he's going to stay in Detroit. But I think he will. Depending on how much the Red Wings are willing to pay Larkin and how much money Larkin actually wants, we'll see if he does stay. I think he will, though. However, this is coming from the same guy who said Laine would score 55 goals this season. So take it with what you will. Another player that we got to talk about when it comes to forwards leading the charge has to be Dominik Kubalik, who when this season started, he was one of the hottest players. When Dominik Kubalik left Chicago, his career high was actually in his rookie season with 46. And if he keeps going at this pace, he will break that. Although a lot of these points came in October and November, Kubalik so far this season has 12 goals, 16 assists for 28 points. And he has been one of those really good off-season acquisitions that the Red Wings acquired. And our last player in the forwards leading the charge is a player who actually signed his first ever contract that wasn't with his first team he was drafted by at 34 years old. Although he was with Edmonton and Pittsburgh and Vegas and Anaheim, David Perron has only signed his contracts with the St. Louis Blues, and going to the Red Wings, it was his first ever contract signed with a different team. Which is crazy to think that this is actually the first time ever that David Perron has left the Blues through free agency and the Blues getting nothing in return, apart from the expansion draft. Perron, Obviously, 34 years old, was asked to provide some secondary scoring for the Red Wings, and so far he's done an alright job at that. He has 12 goals, 15 assists for 27 points. Now, usually I have other forwards to shout out that weren't involved in the forwards leading the charge. However, there hasn't been a lot of active forwards apart from those three. Now, moving on here to the Blue Line X Factors, there's been one particular defenseman who has actually been playing pretty well, relatively, actually. Filip Hronek was often overlooked by a lot of casual hockey fans. However, this season, he's put up some solid offensive numbers to at least help with the scoring. Hronek is also another player who is on pace to surpass his career high from last season, as so far this year he has 7 goals, 22 assists for 29 points. Now, the other blue liner in the Blue Line X Factors has actually been a lot weaker offensively and is one of the main causes why Detroit's goal scoring is down so low this season. Moritz Seider won the Calder last season as the best rookie, and things were looking good for him as a defenseman to provide some really good offensive stats. However, so far this season, he hasn't lived up to last season's potentials and is in a sophomore slump. I'm not sure what his numbers are defensively because unfortunately I'm not subscribed to Jay Fresh's Patreon, but Seider offensively this season has 2 goals, 11 assists for 13 points. And hopefully, if the Red Wings want to pick up their secondary scoring in the second half, they need to rely on Moritz Seider to help them there. And finally, moving on to the backbone, one of the biggest talks earlier last season for the Red Wings was the goaltending. Alex Nedeljkovic is not a starting goaltender, and I think the Red Wings definitely realized that last year when they were letting in 11 goals, 9 goals, 10 goals a night. It was brutal. And that is why at the draft they traded for and then signed Blues goaltender Ville Husso, who had a breakout season and had better stats than Jordan Binnington. So far this year, Husso's numbers haven't been spectacular, but they were better than Nedeljkovic's last season. He is 12-8-5 with a 2.95 goals against average and a .903 save percentage, a much bigger improvement from the past couple of years. So going back to that question that I asked at the beginning of the video, how long do rebuilds typically last? Because the Red Wings have been in this one for about 5 years now. So you gotta wonder that this season is most likely the last season that the Red Wings are in a rebuild, and I agree with you. As long as this team gets some bolstered offense in the offseason, all of their players come back and they're fully healthy and fully effective, and as well as that, some of the prospects that are still down below and are still yet to come up into this lineup perform well, I think this team could make the playoffs next season. Not to say that this season is already just a left behind, you could just throw it away. However, I still think that next season is likely the year where they will take that big step. Anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you all very much for watching. For iSports Related, really do appreciate you to subscribe down below if you are new. And anyways, thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Adios.